Thursday, March 19th, and we have MMA news here on the CRP. I'm Miguel Durrani. I'm joined by our MMA analyst, Devin Miller, to talk about the rumored return of Conor McGregor. McGregor's name is coming up in negotiations with the UFC for a return in July. What's up in the air? His opponents. There have been a lot of names tossed around, but nobody is really set in stone. Donald Cerrone, which appeared to be close to getting done, now it didn't even appear to be on Dana White's latest shortlist. Devin, this is big news with McGregor coming back, and then obviously the ESPN deal and stuff. You know, McGregor, could headline any event anywhere for the UFC, and he was probably still their biggest gun, obviously. So it's big news whenever he fights. Who's he going to fight, though? That's the question.
Well, that's still up in the air. The fight that he's talking about, though, in July, for the past several years now, the two most coveted cards in the UFC's schedule tend to be International Fight Week in July in Vegas, and then the Madison Square Garden card in November. That's been going on for probably 4 or 5 years, and UFC 239 is being scheduled for July 6th in Vegas at the T-Mobile Arena, and he would be the perfect co-feature for that card. But he's coming out saying that if he's going to be fighting a co-feature, he's demanding stakes in the company at this point, and he wants ownership rights, and that's going to be some negotiations that he's going to have to deal with the UFC going forward. And the opponent that has been most mentioned for the past few months for McGregor's return has been Donald Cerrone, but we saw headlines that a co-feature, the idea of a co-feature is what was leading McGregor to go back into negotiations on this. And I don't know if giving him pay-per-view points or giving him ownership rights or whatever is gonna impact his decision one way or the other. But we've also seen this past week that he's had some Twitter altercations with Max Holloway, where he posted some old photos of Max Holloway from their first fight, and then Max is coming back saying, "Oh well, yeah, he was 21-year-old Max. I beat 21-year-old Max," and and all this stuff. They still had a little back and forth, and Max Holloway's obviously fighting for the interim title at the UFC 236 card next month for that division. So that's another interesting thing. And then Dana White, with his interview with Megan O'Leary, mentioned Nate Diaz and mentioned Khabib, and there was no mention of Tony anywhere. So it's really up in the air right now what happens with Conor, but I think a co-feature in July is likely. I'm still going to say that the favorite for that fight will be Donald Cerrone, but we'll see.
Well, yeah, it does make it interesting with Conor's negotiations, because at the end of the day, it was made, into big news last year that he had signed an 8-fight deal. I think he's done 1 fight on that 8-fight deal. And it's like, what did the UFC allow him in his contract? Because the contract, with the UFCs were never renegotiable or anything like that. In fact, things always went very poorly for fighters of that nature. So it will definitely be interesting to see. Now, we're under slightly different management. Dana's still there, but the real bosses there are different. They may, operate a little bit different than the Fertittas, but under the Fertittas' reign, they really didn't allow anybody to play this type of game. So it will be interesting to see what kind of power Conor does wield. The opponent, I think, also comes into play here, because the bottom line is there has been talk of a Ferguson versus Max Holloway interim title bout at 155 pounds, but based on recent developments in the Ferguson camp, that may be up in the air. And if Holloway is looking for an opponent, then Holloway and Conor McGregor could headline the card, and that would solve the problem. The issue is that without the interim title shot that Holloway would bring with him, and Conor's giving something away there too. In a way, that's actually a better fight than Ferguson. I wanted him to fight Ferguson because I thought it was the right way to test him and to show him, look, you're not getting soft matchmaking. Holloway represents that same type of opponent And in addition to that, when you force somebody to a rematch when they've already beaten somebody, they are sort of giving something away as well. So I'd be okay with that being for the interim title, Max Holloway and Conor McGregor. It satisfies something. If it's going to be Cerrone, then per the UFC's structure, then it would have to be a co-feature. Couldn't be a main event because of the non-title issue. And then from there, what are you going to give McGregor for that? What is that worth? And what type of can of worms are you opening up there? It seems to me like Holloway may be the best scenario, especially if Ferguson is sidelined.
Yeah, that would be a very lucrative fight. There's no doubt about that. And Max Holloway is definitely not the Max Holloway that fought Conor McGregor 5 or 6 years ago. And for example, Max put up pictures of, I was 21 years old, you were 25, and then he said this was me at 25, and it was a picture of him with UFC gold around his waist. And when Conor was 21 years old, he was getting submitted by Joseph Duffy. So a lot changed in those 4 years for Max, so that would be a much bigger, better fight now. Max has went on to become the king of featherweights, and now he's moving up. But if he's able to get by Dustin Poirier, he'll have a belt in another division. And so I think that fight, that rematch is inevitable. I'm not so sure it's going to happen yet in July because there's still a lot of questions that are unanswered because we don't really know if they do a co-feature with Cerrone, what will be the main event. I mean, obviously they've been talking about the Daniel Cormier-Brock Lesnar fight for a while, and that's still a mega fight that they can throw out there. And if they can somehow persuade Khabib to come back, that's what I would like to see happen the most. If they do Conor and Cerrone, would be a Khabib and Tony headliner. I think that'd be a massive card. But it's all yet to be seen.
Yep.
And,
I appreciate you cleaning me up there a little bit because we're talking about Ferguson and Quinton, not Ferguson and Holloway. So the Holloway Poirier fight still stands, but if Holloway does get by Poirier, which isn't a given, but if he does, then he I think is the most logical opponent for Conor. If the July timeframe lines up. But yeah, based on what you're saying, there's still a very chaotic situation there. And sorry I got all that mixed up. But one thing I do want to comment, I don't think for sure that Cormier and Lesnar and McGregor, I don't think the UFC is going to put those two on one card. I think those two draws are going to be kept separate, and they're going to try to force the public to pay twice, once for each of those. And I mean, I think it just makes business sense. And they've never really, whenever they stack the card, there's always been that one super fight that adds, the finishing touch to the card. You never get two of those, you know what I mean? And if you do, I think they break it up. You never saw Conor and Ronda together, for example. So, although in July the thoughts and dreams from a fan point of view of a mega card are very nice. I'm not sure if that's going to happen just from the business standpoint. The UFC's probably, they haven't done it in the past.
Yeah, and I'm not even so sure that Brock Lesnar's in the USADA testing pool yet, and he's got some WWE commitments. I think the time's going to start running a little low on that fight if Brock's not wanting to do it soon. And so that's all yet to be seen. But that's just kind of where we're at with all this right now. Is that we've got with the news about Conor talking about July, we've got kind of a time frame now about what he's looking at. And I don't think it was too hard to forecast that he was probably going to be looking for International Fight Week because it's always such a big week in the middle of the summer. People are buying pay-per-views. People are having cookouts or having parties. A Conor McGregor fight would definitely sell during then. Finding the right headliner, the right opponent is going to be the next step. And we've heard we're hearing of multiple different ideas of opponents. I mean, they've always got the Diaz trilogy right now in their back pocket, but it's just we don't even know what's going on with the Diaz's either. So there's so much we don't really know. We don't know what if Khabib's really going to hold out till November. What's going on with that situation? We don't know. We just covered Tony Ferguson last weekend. We have no idea what's going on with that situation and his, bizarre
behavior
story that's coming out on him, his bizarre behavior. And now Conor McGregor just smashed somebody's phone, and he's probably going to be getting sued soon. And we have no idea what's going on with him in terms of his negotiations with the UFC. We're just getting kind of an idea. And Donald Cerrone's been really silent, and we haven't heard a thing from the Diaz brothers. And Max Holloway's he's got a fight coming up. So, and depending on that fight, that's no pushover fight either. Dustin Poirier is a very tough competitor, and that could be a back and forth war that Max isn't going to be ready in 3 months after that to even fight in the first place. So there's a lot left to be seen moving forward. But one thing we do know just from the headlines that we covered just on this episode is that Conor is forecasting. Yeah, he's forecasting for July, and we'll have more information when it comes out. But at the moment, we can only really speculate.
Well, and that's the latest news. We do know that Conor McGregor is looking to return in the July timeframe. That would rule out Khabib, even though Khabib was mentioned from Dana White. Khabib, returning from suspension fresh in July if everything's good, maybe holding out till November if things are still contentious with the UFC. So you're in a situation there where Khabib is definitely not going to be the opponent for Conor in July. And from there, who is it going to be? When it is decided, the CRP will be there to cover it. I'm Miguel Dorati. That's Devin Miller.